the global creator economy. So, if you look at globally, the creator economy is worth 191 billion, and that's last year, and it's heading toward 528 billion by 2030. So that's in the next 4 years. What are our advantages? So we have the youngest population. Africa's median age is 19. And we have the largest pool of digital first natives. We have a lot of mobile first platforms that democratize access. So creators no longer need studios, they just need their smartphones to create content. Can everyone still hear me?
Yes, Rolf, we
Is everyone
still
still
have
with
you.
me?
We can still hear you. Don't worry about it. In case we miss you, this is Dadimato. We'll tell you.
Okay. Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. I'll just continue then. So as I was saying, our median age is 19, so we have the world's largest pool of digital native creators, and then mobile first platforms, so platforms such as Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, Threads. They're democratizing access. So if you're a creator, you don't need a studio, you just need a smartphone. And then an interesting tidbit I saw over here is that Kenya leads the continent in terms of digital readiness. So 310 billion almost, 310 billion US dollars in digital transactions were facilitated in Kenya alone in 2024. So we have the infrastructure, we have the groundwork to build a proper and a budding creator economy. Just some stats for your attention. 48%, that's the internet penetration, projected in Kenya in 2025. And that was powered by broadband and 5G rollout. Kenyan startups, in another report I saw, raised close to 700 million in 2024, one of the highest in Africa. We obviously know about M-Pesa, right? That pioneered mobile money. And now Kenya also has the opportunity to do that with the creator economy. So there's a lot of things in terms of the groundwork, that's sort of willing and ready for Kenya to be, the next digital trailblazer on the continent. But what we sort of need now is to move from content to commerce. It's one thing to make a piece of content, it's another thing to monetize it, right? And we need to build that creator monetization infrastructure. So what does it look like when platforms and governments work together to build creator infrastructure, right? So when regulators and platforms come together, how does it work? So where I was is in 2024, we launched in-stream ads and Facebook ads on Reels for eligible Kenyan creators. Recently, we've moved to a model called FCM, where you don't just monetize your video content, but you can essentially monetize everything. So photos, text, and that's on Facebook. On Instagram, we have subscriptions. But that in particular was a direct result of our sustained partnership between our global partnerships team, our policy team, our products team, and the Kenyan government, right? So there was a lobby for creators to be monetized, platform, regulator, policy, government came together to make sure that happens for creators. And what we're interested in now, just from today up until, the end of time is making our family of apps a one-stop shop for creators. So a place where you can create, build audiences, and earn, right? So it used to be that you could only do that on Facebook and Instagram, for example. But now, even if you look at a platform like WhatsApp, there's something called channels where creators can tap in, build their communities as well. So the idea is that if it sits on Meta and we own it, we want creators to be able to create, build audiences, and earn. But we obviously set a high bar for creativity, just to make sure that it resonates locally, but it also has some global appeal. Monetization alone, though, isn't enough. When I speak about scalable creator enterprises, I'm talking about the full stack. Um, so I'll talk about what it means, what scalable really means for African creators. The first thing is discovery, right? You can't scale anything that isn't discovered. So algorithmic reach is important, right? And crossing borders without a marketing budget. What does this entail as a creator? It means making best-in-class content, that sticks to our community guidelines so people can discover you and we can recommend your content. So it's discovery first. Monetization, obviously, you can't scale zero. So if you make your first dollar, we want to make sure you make 100 more, then 1,000 more, and potentially like 1 million more. So just like revenue sharing through our monetization models, brand partnerships, subscriptions, payments, we want to make sure, or at least what needs to happen is that, there's seamless payouts, and that people are able to get their money in the ways that they generally do. Whether it's mobile wallets, M-Pesa, I know creators have been talking about that quite a bit. Can we withdraw money? It's not as simple as that, but I'm talking about in terms of infrastructure, those are some of the things, creators are asking for. Community, we want to make sure we're providing tools that turn followers into loyal customers and collaborators. And then enterprise, I think, is really important. So making sure that creators graduate from being an individual creator to a registered business with employees and IP. It's one thing to shoot, produce content, on your own, but that's not something you can do until the end of time. So we want creators to grow from creators to enterprises. Um, and then, I think one of the key drivers for this will be smart regulation as an enabler. I think when I talk about, Kenya and Meta's partnership model, I think it shows what's possible. But maybe to distill it into a sentence or two, my core argument is that smart regulation is an accelerant, right? It's not a brake. When consumers trust platforms because their data is protected, because content is moderated, because the community standards, they tend to engage more, right? When creators have legal recognition as businesses, they can access capital. So when people aren't looking at creators just as independent contractors, but businesses in their own right, they can access capital. But when your intellectual property is protected as well, brands are willing to invest in partnerships. And when there's a harmony across all of those, like a creator in Nairobi can build an enterprise that serves Lagos, Johannesburg, and London. So that full stack that I'm talking about is really important. And I think that Kenya Meta partnership shows that model works. Let me leave you with something, because I didn't want to take too long. I'll leave you with a framework for how we scale this, because I think some of the work that we've done is replicable across the continent. I identified 4 pillars that I think are important for creators to turn into enterprises at scale. The first is infrastructure, so that comes from a platform, side. It's monetization tools; those are already available in Kenya. It's payment rails. The second is capability, so digital literacy, business skills, and creative tooling. We host creator sessions with creators, either in person or platforms such as this, where creators, platforms, and regulators can be all in one room. I think those are really important. Policy, so regulation that recognizes digital creators, protects their rights, and enables cross-border commerce is really important. And then the last thing we need is a multi-stakeholder partnership, so an ecosystem. The idea that it isn't just the creator's responsibility to grow, or policy's responsibility, or regulator. We need an ecosystem of people who are willing to scale all of this stuff. Um, some lessons that we've learned, not just in Kenya, but across the continent. And this is for everyone in the room: regulators, policy people, platform people. Treat creators as partners, not as beneficiaries, right? So you want to co-design programs that ensure relevance and adoption. Don't think on the creator's behalf. Start with eligibility and then scale with education. What that means is that not everyone monetizes on day one. So capacity building matters. Learning how to show up on our platforms, learning what it means to create a piece of content that resonates, not just in Nairobi, but everywhere in the world is important as well. And then measuring impact beyond revenue, right? So it's not just the idea that I made $1,000, but I could have made like $500, but I'm employing 2 or 3 people as freelance, videographers or whatever it may be. I think measuring impact beyond revenue is really important. And then for policy, it's iterating with a regulatory cycle. So as policy evolves, as platforms, we want to stay at the table as well. So those are the 4 things. I'll go through them again. Treating creators as partners, not just beneficiaries, starting with eligibility and scaling with education, measuring impact beyond revenue, and iterating, across the regulatory cycle. In terms of recommendations or the path forward, to policymakers, I say I think it's important to explicitly include digital content creators, in any sort of legislation and consult with them. As platforms, making sure we invest in, creators and capacity building to creators, making sure you think of yourself not just as a creator, but as a business. So protecting your IP, diversifying your revenue, and to investors, making sure they invest in the creator economy, because it is going to grow as the years go by. And then to everyone in the room, to all of us, building together. The regulated digital economy is not a constraint, it's a foundation for trust and scale. I'll leave you with a quote, something I thought about, and I'll leave you with this thought. The future of Africa's digital economy will be built by creators who think like enterprises, but it'll also be built by enterprises that create like artists. That's just the thought I want to leave everyone with. I'm not even sure everyone can still hear me. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you heard most of what I said.
Right on. We had everything that you said, except at the point where we said we could not hear you, and you repeated from that point. So it is well. Thank you very much, Rof. And I hope you can take a couple of questions. I know some questions can be hard for you to answer from a policy standpoint, or questions that you do not have, authorization to directly answer on. But I believe we have some questions that can come from members of the audience. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand. If you have any question for Rof and for Meta. Anybody? All right. I think
I'll take one or two. Sure. I still have like 2 minutes, so I'll take one or two questions.
Hi, Rolf. How are you? This is Charlene. Good to see you. So maybe let me ask a question on behalf of the audience.
Good to see you, even though I can't actually see you.
No worries. So there was a question that came up in our morning session with regards to eligibility to monetize on Meta in the platform. So maybe you can give us a step-by-step or what those criteria are, just for the team in the room. And just to give you a background, most of them are starting out in content creation. So any insights as well that you can share. Oh, there we are. I think now you can see us, or maybe not. But yeah, over to you.
Sure. Maybe not yet, but I hope you can hear me. Just for anyone who wants to be eligible, so you have to have a creator account. The first thing, you can't monetize a personal profile. It has to be a page, right? And you have to be marked as a creator. So that's the first thing. You have to have over 1,000 followers. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is that you have to follow our community standards, right? So the content that you post has to be in line with our guidelines. And then the third, it recently changed, so I can't remember the exact number, but there's a watch time element, right? So it's collectively, the videos that you've posted have to account for a certain amount of, views within like the last 3 months. I don't want to misquote the number because I believe it changed recently. But the easiest way to find out is just go to settings. If you have a page, go to monetization or just search FCM monetization. It'll take you directly to our page. But just generally speaking, it's those 4 ones, right? You need a page, not a profile, over 1,000 followers, and you need to have generated and accumulated a certain amount of watch time with your content. But also very important, you need to follow our community standards. If you post content that falls foul of that, then you probably won't be able to monetize. Once you do monetize, you might get demonetized.
all right, cool. Thank you very much. Anybody else with another question? Okay, probably if I could go and ask probably one also on behalf of the people in the room. So I'd like you to take us probably through some of the mistakes that creators do make or have potential of making that would risk either their monetization or their pages on on the Meta platforms, whether Instagram or Facebook, and probably even in some, you know, to an extent, even WhatsApp, sometimes probably even WhatsApp Business, some of the mistakes that they would make that would compromise their pages, either for eligibility to monetization or even having their pages up and running?
Sure. Thank you. I think that's a wonderful question. Well, the first thing in terms of community standards is just like anything discriminatory, right? So if you post anything that discriminates anyone based on, their religion, their gender, their race, anything towards that, is almost certain to get you, a community standard strike, and you run the risk of having the content demonetized or your entire page. So anything discriminatory, any bullying, harassment, any sexual content, for example, any of that stuff just usually is a surefire way to get either the content or the page demonetized. And then any inauthentic behavior. What do I mean by inauthentic behavior? We want to make sure, because usually when you get paid for your content that's monetized, it's through a combination of views and engagement. If you're encouraging people to do inauthentic behavior, like for example bots, you pay to get bots that'll get you demonetized. But just besides that, telling people to spam comment, like telling people, for example, leave a like in the comments, or follow me and I'll follow you back, or type rough, to leave your comment, just stuff like that, usually gets your content demonetized. We want to make sure that the engagements that you get are authentic, and the quality engagements. So what I usually tell creators is that, let's say for example you posted a fashion video, get ready with me, you could ask your followers, for example, like, which part of the outfit did you like the most? And then maybe someone might say they like the shoes, or what do you want me to style next, or where should I buy my clothes next, what theme, just stuff like that. But if you just post, for example, if you tell your followers to leave a heart or to leave a thumbs up, just stuff like that can get that piece of content demonetized. So inauthentic behavior and anything discriminatory, fake news, I think that's the easiest way just to get in trouble on our platforms.
All right. If I could also just ask one last question. Even from the earlier representative, Sarah, who spoke on the force that Kenya has had towards the creation of content and also engagement with the Meta platforms, there is a question on how important this market is, for Meta in general, and also if there can be special attention that is given to the Kenyan creators and or businesses that spend on the Meta platforms, just to ensure that the partnership is seamless against many or a lot of the challenges that Kenyans face in engaging with the platforms. Are there any plans? Should we hope for something? Are there any engagements that are farming up, if there is anything or not?
Sure. No, I think that's a very important question, Martin. I wouldn't want to make any specific, promises that, will prioritize Kenya over any other region. But what I can say is give you the plans that we have in H2. In terms of our policy teams, youth and safety, for example, huge, objective, just making sure teens and young people are safe on the platform. So we have a lot of initiatives towards that direction, just from now up until the second half of the year. Myself as well, I'll be running quite a few workshops in Kenya in the second half of the year, both virtually and hopefully some in person. But then third, I think Kenya benefits from having something some of the other regions don't have. So in Kenya, we have a program called Train the Trainer, right? And so essentially what happens is that we as Meta have trained some people in Kenya to be our representatives in Kenya, to sort of be our evangelists, talk to creators, gather sort of like insights, educate them about creator monetization and our community standards. That's something we're going to expand and keep rolling through the second half of the year. And Kenya also has the distinction of being the only market that we currently service on the continent that has that model. So, I mean, yeah, just a lot of creator engagements and opportunities coming in the second half of the year. Virtual programs, some of them in person, but in the event that we're not in the country or I'm not in the country physically, we do have a team of sort of creator evangelists who do the work on our behalf.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. And there being no other questions, I'm just confirming. All right, cool. I think that's it. Thank you very much, Rof, for your time and for being very clear as you were doing your presentation. We are not going to take much more of your time. Thank you very much, and God bless you from down south. All right?
Thank you so much.
All right, cool. Cheers. Okay. Thank you very much.